Good afternoon. I'm Regina Strong, and I'm the Environmental Justice Public Advocate. Over the last day and a half, we've had great conversations about environmental justice, and I want to thank everybody for joining us for our midday keynote. We're honored this afternoon to have joining us Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Governor Whitmer created my position as the Environmental Justice Public Advocate very early in her administration, as well as the Office of Environmental Justice Public Advocate. Her focus on both the environmental work that we're doing, as well as environmental justice, has been pivotal in helping us move the needle forward in addressing challenges when it relates to environmental justice. We're also working to incorporate equity into our climate work moving forward. And I'm looking forward to hearing the governor speak about all of those things in consort. So Governor, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Regina. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to be here with all of you. And I want to thank all of yesterday's speakers. So far, this conference has helped us learn about the challenges we face and the policies we can pursue to address them. And today I want to talk a little bit about the big picture and the value of environmental justice. So Regina, Director Clark, EPA Administrator Regan, and all the participants from state and federal government, we're really glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. It's great to be with you all. When I was elected governor, I knew that we had a lot of work to do. The guiding principle of my administration has been to make sure our government works for the people of our state. So my administration got to work immediately to show through action, not just words, that we would go above and beyond to regain people's trust and deliver meaningful change that will touch people's lives. We have focused on making sure that state government was both responsive and proactive when it came to handling public health crises and environmental challenges. And this is about more than just mitigating environmental health risks. We know that we have to invest in communities and marginalized populations who have been burdened by environmental injustice. We had to listen and uplift these communities and pave a pathway to a more sustainable, prosperous future. Because we know that the health of our economy is inextricably linked to the health of our people and our planet. Whether it's a global pandemic, natural disasters caused by and exacerbated by climate change, or a water crisis fed by government inaction, we have seen firsthand how failing to invest in environmental protection and public health can devastate communities and harm our economy. It's important that Michiganders have partners in state government fighting for their health, fighting for access to clean, safe drinking water or sustainable economic opportunity. My team and I hit the ground running on our first day. One of our administration's first actions was to reorganize the state's environmental agency and set up our priorities. We set up the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, to focus on meeting communities where they are. To facilitate this change, we launched the Environmental Justice Interagency Response Team to make sure that all state employees identify opportunities to address environmental injustices in their work. And we established a new position, Environmental Justice Public Advocate, to ensure that impacted communities had power and presence in state government. Last year, Regina Strong, our Michigan Environmental Justice Public Advocate, formed the Advisory Council on Environmental Justice. And on the council, impacted citizens and experts advise our administration on the front end of decision-making on environmental issues. The first executive directive I signed made sure that state employees immediately report any threats to public health or welfare to their department heads, who will ensure that the threat is eliminated or mitigated immediately. It ensures public employees are empowered to speak up when they feel that our public health is at risk. I formalize these practices because we know that environmental health hazards disproportionately impact low-income communities of color. As we have seen through COVID, when we don't pay attention to the science, when we don't listen to marginalized communities, people suffer. Over the past 2 years, we've made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. In Michigan, environmental justice is defined as the equitable treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, ability, or income, to the development and application of laws, regulations, and policies that affect the environment, as well as the places people live, work, play, worship, and learn. Living up to this definition starts with listening to voices that have too often been left out and incorporating the lived experiences of impacted individuals and communities into policy making. This approach leads to better rules and laws and stronger partnerships that'll help us more effectively protect Michigan's environment, safeguard public health, and uplift marginalized communities. Environmental justice isn't an add-on for our administration. It's an integral, foundational priority, and it's essential to our work as public servants. Parallel to environmental justice, we have an imperative to bring intersectionality into everything we do. By taking steps to center racial and gender equity in every decision we make, person we hire, statement we release, we can make better policy. We can also confront systemic racism head on in all aspects of government, economy, employment, healthcare, and education, everywhere. Since I was sworn in as governor, I've made it a priority to include more people of color, more women, more members of the LGBTQ+ community at decision-making tables across state government. And I strive to give everyone an empowered role, which goes beyond representation for the sake of checking a box. It means a real presence with tangible decision-making power. Across my administration, we're building a more inclusive state government, not only through representation, but with our policies and services. Last year, I signed an executive directive mandating implicit bias training for all state employees to help us all understand the implicit unconscious bias that exists in every one of us and how we as public servants need to address our bias because we're impacting people's lives every day. I appointed the executive office's first ever equity and inclusion officer, Poppy Hernandez, to develop diversity and inclusion strategies within my executive office and across state government to promote a more equitable and inclusive state workforce. So we've built the most diverse cabinet in state history, and it doesn't stop there. We're going to continue leading by example and making sure that Michigan state government is a model of equality, equity, understanding, and fairness. And we also need all of our employers and institutions to do the same thing. By centering diversity, equity, and inclusion for justice, we can create real lasting change. When we utilize our positions of power and innate privileges to uplift marginalized communities and pursue equitable solutions, we can create a more just Michigan for all Michiganders. I'm so thankful that Michigan's not alone in this work. It's great to have a partner in the White House and at the EPA. I'm thankful that the Biden administration is using the blueprint that we've been working from, that we created here in Michigan around environmental justice. And we're pursuing bold policies and investments to support it. So I appreciate all of you for your work. We have a lot to do, and we need more people in this fight with us. Because environmental justice is racial justice. Environmental justice is economic justice. Environmental justice is justice for all. And I truly look forward to working and continuing our work alongside you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor. I have a couple questions that have come through that I wanted to ask you.
Great.
All right. So over the last day or so during the conference, you heard a lot of speakers talk about how our work in environmental justice was born of the Flint water crisis. What has the administration done to help people in Flint get justice, access to clean water, and really try to rebuild trust in government?
Yeah. Well, we know that trust isn't lost overnight, and it's not earned overnight, and it's a long, important part of our work that we're doing. The Flint water crisis remains one of the starkest examples of environmental injustice in our lifetimes. From the first months in office, the Attorney General and I made clear to our teams that even though we inherited the legal fallout from the Flint water crisis, it was our responsibility to achieve the best possible settlement for the people of Flint. Recently, the state of Michigan joined a settlement for all Flint water civil lawsuits totaling over $600 million. The majority of those funds will benefit children and families who were affected when the city water supply was switched to the Flint River. We also took several actions across state government as a result of the lessons learned after Flint. One of the first actions I took in office was establishing 2 new offices, the Clean Water Public Advocate and the Environmental Justice Public Advocate. Both offices are focused on investigating water concerns, improved transparency and communication, providing solutions to water concerns across the state. And they're critical to rebuilding trust, which is an important part of your question. We got to earn trust in our communities and ensure that communities have a direct line to the executive office when they have serious concerns about their water. We launched the Michigan Lead Safe Public Awareness Campaign to ensure that the state's coordinated with local communities on how to protect people from lead exposure and reduce all sources of lead found in Michigan homes. The Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy is currently implementing the strongest lead and copper rule in the country. In February, Eagle and I sent a letter to the EPA opposing proposed rollbacks to the federal lead and copper rule and called for strong, comprehensive rule that aligns with Michigan's higher standards. We also included funding for drinking water investments and wraparound services for people who've been exposed to lead in all of our budgets, including $500 million in the Michigan Clean Water Plan to build up our water infrastructure and new home lead prevention funds. In the same vein, we called on the Biden administration to invest in water infrastructure and support the American Jobs Plan proposal to replace all lead pipes nationwide. Our requests to the federal government highlight that there's a $2.2 trillion need over the next 20 years to address our water infrastructure. We've done a lot of good work, but I know that we'll never be able to fully make right the injustice that was done to the people of Flint. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we live up to our promise, which is to treat all people with dignity and to address the shortcomings in policy and certainly the incredible pain that the people of Flint was inflicted upon them. We remain steadfast partners, and I'm proud of the work that we're doing, but determined to continue working on this front.
Thank you for that, Governor. I've got another question for you. So advocates, especially in the city of Detroit, have been fighting for years to make water more affordable and stop injustices and practices like water shutoffs and, you know, when families can't afford their bills. And I know that action was taken during the COVID pandemic over the last year. But what are the plans to provide relief to families on water bills moving forward?
Yeah, so before we had any COVID cases, Mayor Duggan and I announced the coronavirus water restart plan to ensure that all Detroiters had access to water in their homes. Now, under the plan, for the first 30 days, the state of Michigan covers the the customer's cost to reconnect water service for Detroiters who currently experience or at risk of experiencing a water service interruption due to non-payment. After 30 days, Detroiters who are at risk of water service interruption will be able to restore their water service by paying $25 a month. Now, the city of Detroit announced this year that it will no longer use shutoffs as a collection mechanism, and that's something of which we're really supportive. In March, I signed an executive order that required the reconnection of water service where had previously been shut off due to non-payment and required accountability and tracking measures for the public water supplies. The Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy worked to create the Restart Grant Program to help cities comply and pay for reconnection. And that starts with a $500,000 grant to the city of Detroit for that purpose. After the actions by the Supreme Court, I worked to pass the Water Shutoff Protection Act, which makes the executive order now the law of the state. So my administration has worked to provide emergency water to communities to meet their needs. We've facilitated customer complaints about water utilities and worked with people to connect them to appropriate resources and assistance programs. And this has really helped thousands of families get reconnected to water service. We're going to continue to advocate for additions to the COVID supplemental relief funds that we use from the federal government to ensure that they're included in a program focused on protecting access to water. And we've also included $25 million from DHHS to create the Water Utility Assistance Program, which reimbursed water utility providers and providing bill forgiveness for debts and fees incurred by residential water customers during the formal COVID-19 state of emergency. So this has helped 70,000 Michigan families receive water debt assistance. Our COVID-19 recovery plan included $665 million for rental assistance, of which 70 to 80 million was dedicated to utility relief, including water bills to renters experiencing financial hardship.
So thank you for that answer. I have several questions, but I'm going to ask you one more. While this question came in, while they're entirely supportive of your directives to move Michigan to 100% decarbonization, how are you going to ensure that communities and workers don't get left behind in the transition away from coal and carbon-heavy industries?
Yeah, thanks for this question. For too long, there's been a misconception that preparing for the future comes at the expense of economic growth and good paying jobs. It's not a binary choice. It's not either or, it's a both and. And the health of our economy is inextricably linked to the health of our people and our planet. Whether it's a global pandemic or it's natural disasters caused by climate change, we have seen firsthand how failing to invest in environmental protection and public health can be devastating to our economy. And it's industrial states like ours that have lost jobs to automation, and modernization. In the past, big changes created winners and losers, and the government didn't get involved until after the fact. And this time, we got to put workers and communities first. We need to ensure that the people who are threatened by change to a more sustainable future and that have historically disproportionately been impacted by climate change, that they are able to benefit from our preparedness. One of the tools that we've put in place to ensure early interventions for the transition to a clean energy future is the Energy Transition Impact Project, ETIP. This will identify communities that will be impacted by changes to the mix of energy production in Michigan and minimize those impacts and dislocation, including the loss of employment, property tax revenues, and related community services. ETIP must engage with those communities and workers to discuss opportunities for new development, to offset losses of existing facilities, identify models used everywhere that have addressed large-scale changes, and identify resources that can benefit the adjustment strategy. The ETIP also must explore taxation and revenue strategies to fit our changing energy production and report periodically on its progress. In addition to this, we launched Futures for Frontliners and the Michigan Reconnect, two programs that offer tuition-free education or skills training to Michiganders who are 25 and up, or those who served on the front lines of this pandemic. So even with these great programs, we've got more work to do to ensure we bring everyone toward a more sustainable and prosperous future. Yesterday, we hosted President Biden in Dearborn at the Ford F-150 electric vehicle plant. And I think part of that message was, yes, we can be great stewards of our economy. We can be great supporters of our workforce and upward mobility, and we can be the solvers of mobility issues that don't compromise our environment and actually put lots of good people in good paying jobs. So we can and we must do all of these things at the same time.
Thank you so much for that answer. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. We've had such good conversations over the last day. Today, we're looking forward to more tomorrow. And having you here midday on the second day has been great. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the work you and your team are doing, Regina. Bye, everybody.
All right, thank you. So our next session, everyone, is at 1:30. It's back on the table, a good segue about climate inequity. We'll be hearing from Dr. Brandy Brown, Dr. Tony Reams, and Amy Bandit. So until then, have a great afternoon. Thank you.